Stay tuned for part one of the interview with JoNina Ervin and Lorenzo Ervin. JoNina was the former editor of the Black Panther Newspaper, and Lorenzo was and is a revolutionary and was a Black Panther member who was tortured by the U.S. government. Stay tuned to part one of three.
Hey, you can go back to this community. In my case, I had been put in the military in JoNina. I was too young. I was underage. I was still in high school, and they just took me anyway. And that's what they were doing in the South. They would take young black men who had basically no education or little education or was in high school. It didn't make a difference. They were looking for cannon fodder, and they sent them to the military, and they sent them to Vietnam. Well, in my case, I didn't go to Vietnam right away, but the plans were that all of us would have gone to Vietnam. You know, everyone had been, close to a million soldiers that would have been possibly sent to Vietnam. I think that at one point they only had maybe 300,000 at the high stage, but they had planned to just overwhelm the Vietnamese resistance, as well as the movements for resistance in other countries around it, you know, in Thailand and other places, Cambodia. So they were going to have upwards of 1 million men and numerous military equipment, you know. And that was the plan. And by us resisting, we shook up their whole system. So I was going to be the scapegoat primarily, who, you know, I was the only one who really caught as the main leadership. And I was going to be a scapegoat. And but what happened is, like I said, the publicity on the riot that took place in Mannheim prison, stockade, had spread all over the world. And there were a number of other riots that took place even after I left, you know. And so they never had ever effectively gained control of that place to send all the troops in the United States military at that time, sent all up to Vietnam and just overwhelm that area. They never got the opportunity to do that. So they hated my guts. And they wanted to at least give me an undesirable discharge, you know, at least do that. So I wouldn't be able to find any work or get any benefits, anything, you know. I'd just be a ghost in the system.
So you were released. What year were you released?
67. I came back home.
When did y'all met? So did you become a Panther too?
Well, she was married. She was married to another brother who was he was a Black Panther. So I didn't meet her till years and years later.
Let's swap over to you now. So now you're in the Panthers.
Right.
You join.
You know, just to briefly, it's, you know, Lorenzo and I have an interesting history, because the first contact that we actually had was in 1978, when he was locked up in prison. He was, you know, doing a life sentence for hijacking the plane to Cuba. And he had written a letter to the Black Panther Newspaper editor about the conditions that were going on, you know, in prison. And I was the editor at the time. And so he told me years later, of course, when he said I actually answered the letter. And we found a sister who's a historian of the Black Panther Party. She found the letter from the 1978 issue. We published it, that he had written to the newspaper. So that was our first contact. We didn't actually physically meet, actually. But then we later, in the early mid-1990s,
Well, you go hijacked the plane in 78.
I hijacked the plane in 69. And I was arrested later on that year in 1969, brought back to the United States. And I was on trial for the death penalty. At that time, hijack a plane was a crime for which you could be sentenced, you know, to lose your life. And so they brought me back, and they had me in New York, because they brought me to Germany, and they had me in New York. And while I was there, I met Martin Sastry, who was a jailhouse lawyer, as well as someone who was suing the New York State federal prison, the New York State prison system. And having met him, he helped me avoid the death penalty portion of my case, because they could sentence you to death even if you didn't kill anyone, even if you didn't physically harm anybody. They could sentence you to death. They had the ability to do it. The charge ran 20 years to death. If they decided they wanted to give you a death penalty, you would get it, and they would be in the clear legally. So he pointed out that, first of all, when you were captured in Germany, you weren't lawfully arrested. The State Department is who sent agents to get me, and they are not, law enforcement agents. So effectively, they kidnapped me, and they took me out of a country that was hostile to the United States, who had given me asylum, and and had covertly sent me across the border, the 3K zone they call it, in East Berlin, and in West Berlin, and brought me to the American consulate, and American consulate is surrounded by a military base where the main offices of the military intelligence agency is located. And I'm there, and I'm effectively being tortured to information for a week. And eventually the FBI sent notice over to him and said, why isn't this guy back here? You guys have got him, right? Why is he back in our custody? What's going on, So the FBI never came abroad to arrest me. The people who came and got me were from a nebulous agency, part of the Department of State. They called it the Bureau of National Resources. It's just nebulous. It's a covert agency. And that's who they sent to get me and bring me back, and they brought me back illegally. And so when I got back in the United States, Martin Sostre, who I met in the prison, said that you can get out of the death penalty portion of your case because of the irregularities that the government resorted to bring you back to the United States. He said, I don't know about getting you out of the whole case. He said, but we can defeat the death penalty portion now. And so he set it up so I go to court. And when I'm there, the judge gets ready to speak. I jump up and I said that I've been kidnapped, I've been beaten and tortured, and I'm going to tell the world about it. And the judge said, wait a minute, what's going on here? What's going on? I kept talking. And finally, he was smart enough to move me into his room, his chambers. And we sat there and we talking, and I told him all about it. I said, I'm going to tell the world about it. I got it in legal writing right here. So I want to put it before the world, let them know that you kidnapped me. We're right near the United Nations, and I'm making a plea to the United Nations to save me from being executed by a racist government. They kidnapped me from a country in East Germany. Of course, East Germany was a common state. And when they found out about it, they were making a complaint themselves. And so what they had to do, they made the deal that they were not going to charge me with the death penalty portion of this case. Now, I didn't get out of the case. I had to go back and fight the case in Georgia and all this stuff. But they weren't putting me on trial for my life. And it made a big difference, and that was one of the things I won in New York. And so this, was just like, I was in prison for 15 years. And this was part of the whole thing of me, going to Cuba and asking for a little bit of asylum, hijacking a plane and all the stuff that happened to me in Tennessee, where, a Ku Klux Klan leader, an attorney, who was responsible for the bombing of the church at Birmingham, who was responsible for bombings all over the South. And he planned it, and then he would go and get these people out of jail, represent them in court. So I was making an attempt on his life, and they claim. Yeah, they claim. I'm not pleading guilty anyway, but they claim that I'd gotten some explosives and was going to, plant bombs to kill this person. And, well, the incident didn't happen. Because I was running, they were on my tail by then, and they were running me out of town, and then the case blew up. And I had to go on the run, and I went to Cuba and asked for political asylum. I got to Cuba, and because of a number of things happening down there, I had to leave there, and they sent me to East Germany. Well, they sent me directly to Czechoslovakia, and then I went to East Germany. And saw the Panthers who had hijacked planes and stuff within Cuba and other countries I ran across. I was only running for about a year, and eventually I was captured. And while I was in Czechoslovakia, I escaped from there and that's when I went to East Germany. And I had plans to make it as far as Africa, I had a possibility of getting asylum in Africa. And unfortunately, before that could happen, and that's when I was arrested, or so-called arrested, I was just kidnapped and brought across the lines from East Germany into West Germany. And arriving in West Germany, I was immediately beset upon by agents of the United States.
And then you started your sentencing term.
Well, I eventually received 2 life sentences for that possibility of parole. And that was in lieu of me being sentenced to death. Now, that's a harsh enough sentence for somebody that, is 21 years old. You're looking at spending the rest of your life in prison with the prospect that you wouldn't even live through your term. They had racists trying to kill me and all this kind of stuff. In the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary, when I arrived there, I was told that by guards. A black guard said, "Listen, somebody has hired somebody to kill you in here. And they don't want you to be able to tell anybody anything, and they don't want you to be able to ever live to get out, And so that was the case. But there were people there who had heard about my case, black people, even white people, that knew it was a railroading. I didn't receive a fair trial. I had a Ku Klux Klan jury, essentially. And these people decided that they would help me. So when I would go to, around the prison, walk around the prison or whatever, and they knew about this stuff, they had somebody with me all the time. So whoever this person was that they claimed was going to come in and kill me or whatever, harm me, couldn't get to me, I had all sorts of people around me, And eventually, so what the officials decided to do, they decided to send me to the prison in Terre Haute, Indiana. I had been in the Black Panther Party from the time that I got out of the Army. And for 2 years, 67 to 69, was it?
Yeah, the Black Panther Party, Lorenzo was in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, and for a while, SNCC and the Black Panther Party had a brief merger. They joined together, yeah. And so he was working with SNCC in Atlanta, and so a lot of the people in SNCC became part of the Black Panther Party.
In fact, the leadership of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee was drafted into by Huey P. Newton and the leadership of the Black Panther Party. SNCC was a older organization. It had been involved in the Black Power movement. It was one of the instrumental organizations that created the Black Power movement. And, it also had trained organizers in communities all over the South and eventually all over the country. So they wanted to unite with them. They had great respect for them at this particular time. And so the leadership was brought in. The FBI knew about this and was greatly concerned greatly concerned. And so what they did is they started their first Black COINTELPRO to break up the alliance between the Civil Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and the Black Panther Party. Now, that's not to say that there were not political and even personal differences that came about and all that kind of stuff later, but the real we're talking about a timeline of 67 through 69. And that's when the leaders of the Black Panther Party and the leaders of SNCC were merged in one organization, essentially. And also key activists went into the Black Panther Party, key activists and others, you know, who were more sympathetic to the Black Panther Party than they were to SNCC. SNCC was truthfully folding at this time. They were losing their reason for the work they were doing. They had splits. They had political differences in the leadership and all this kind of stuff. And they wouldn't, most people believe that they wouldn't have survived through that period if they had not worked with the Black Panther Party. And eventually they did fold anyway. But the most important thing of what I'm saying is the FBI knew who people were that were doing this. They were scared of that. They thought that this would make this young organization that had only been founded in '66 become a mass movement and would be unstoppable. And so the counterintelligence program, was designed around this first one at least was designed around breaking up the merger between SNCC and the Black Panther Party. They saw what the leadership of the Black Panther Party saw, that there were people there who were tremendous organizers, who had been trained as organizers and who worked as organizers for years, and were made capable organizers inside of the Black Panther Party. And the leadership, the leadership they had gotten at that time was a different leadership that started in '60. This was a leadership that were more revolutionary. They weren't trying to just reform the system; they were trying to overthrow the state. And Soper Carmichael, and that's what he called
H.Rap Brown, they were drafted into the Black Panther.
And James Foreman as well.
James Foreman,
who was also an important leader, and he himself was a socialist, and was responsible for a lot of socialist leanings inside the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that didn't exist otherwise. Now, a lot of this stuff is disputed, and I won't claim that I know it all, and I just know some things. But the point is that this laid the door open for myself and others to join the Black Panther Party, to go into the Black Panther Party. And unfortunately, in my case, since in the South, and I was from Tennessee, I was living in Tennessee, there was no chapters in the South at that time. This only came later, and you're talking about by '67, this group was only a 1 year old, or something like that, and had gone from the phase of being the Black Panther Party for self-defense to being the Black Panther Party. And there was an important distinction there in that instead of just engaging in armed self-defense or even armed conflicts with the police or with racists or whatever, they instead were building a political party for power among the people to transform their communities and to also engage in armed self-defense, when they were attacked. This laid the basis to be a mass organization. What year did you notice that the Black Panther Party?
Well, I started hearing about the Black Panther Party in the late 1960s. I guess the first time I heard about the Black Panther Party, though, I was coming to the end of my freshman year in college. This was like the spring of 1967, and I was watching the news, and they showed the Black Panthers, marching to the state legislature in California, in Sacramento, protesting this law to, at that point, you were able to carry a loaded weapon. It was legal to carry a loaded gun, But the law enforcement in California got tired of the Panthers doing that because they were threatened by that, you know. So they said, we're going to pass a law to end it. And the Black Panthers, Bobby Seale and other Black Panthers, went to Sacramento to protest that, you know, just went to the legislature. And I was watching that on the news. And I was, like I said, I was, you know, at that point, you know, not quite 19 years old, and saw this. And, you know, I'm going to be honest about my initial thing was like, you know, these Black people are crazy. They're marching into a state government office with guns and everything. They're not going to get away with this. And, but then I began to learn more about the Black Panther Party and the breakfast program and the other programs. And I realized, well, I want to be part of something like this. You know, so my initial thing of thinking they're crazy, I became a member.
But the point is that the publicity over the march at the California State Legislature spread all over the country, in fact, spread all over the world. And people who were made conscious of there being a new Black revolutionary movement that had never even thought about the idea, you know. And so that's the period. That period is when you could say it came from being, you know, a local organization, or it just was, you know, a few activists and so forth, and it became a nationwide organization. But a lot of people that came out of the military joined the Black Panther Party. Some of the main leadership, and you were talking about people in Los Angeles, you know, Geronimo Pratt. Is an example, you know, of some of the actors and leaders that came out of the military and had learned, you know, military tactics, and came and joined the Black Panther Party and were able to give instruction on self-defense efforts and you know, arms and the ability to fight off the police and all these sort of things. This is extremely potent information. And the FBI, which was the primary agency that led a campaign to monitor and destroy the Black Panther Party, you know, with the COINTELPRO program, but also a lot of people don't know that the CIA had a program called Operation Chaos, and Operation Chaos was designed to use international programs to monitor leaders of the Black Panther Party and other groups, and not just the Black Panther Party. They spied heavily on H. Rap Brown and at that time he was known as Stokely Carmichael. They spied on them.
Carmichael and H. Rap Brown.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying at that time he was Stokely Carmichael.
Yeah, he was.
That was H. Rap Brown is in prison again now.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Did he ever get out?
He was out. Then now.
Yeah, I remember.
Been in the years.
Yeah, well, he's in prison on another frame-up case. It's interesting that before this current charge, they had charged him with what they called having a shootout with some street gangsters, you know, and they put him in prison. But we defeated the charge. The old activists in Atlanta that had been a snake and other people built a mass movement, and we actually defeated the charges. And so the other charges came later, and that's a whole different thing. The people who had been supporting him, they were pushed to the side. You know, the Muslims that represented his campaign and all this, that they didn't want any reference to him as H. Rap Brown and all this kind of thing. And that was a self-defeating strategy, because, you know, we had already proven that he was being framed. And to try to make out that he's just an imam and they're after him and so forth. It was, you know, everybody in the white community is not sympathetic towards Islam. I mean, there's a large base that is, but a lot of people aren't. And if you cut those people out, people who remember him as a revolutionary, cut those people out of your defense campaign, you weaken it. But this is my opinion, and the other fellows have talked about this as well.